Welcome back. Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. Greetings, everyone. Coming to you with part 2 of our 2-part series with Tiffany Derry and Tom Foley, the leaders of T2D Partners, Roots Chicken Shak, Roots Southern Table. Really, really great interview. If you missed part 1, go back and listen to part 1 with Tiffany. It was such a pleasure to visit with her in our previous episode. Now we get to hear from her business partner, Tom Foley. Shawn, I've known Tom for some time. He used to run around with a lot of the Microsoft stuff we were doing when I first started here at Allen Media. Tom's a great guy, an attorney, business advisor, social entrepreneur. A bit of a Renaissance man, Tom.
I love a Renaissance man. I love someone who's had multiple careers, a lot of irons in the fire, a man after my own heart. I love great partnerships.
It takes one to know one, Shawn.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Love great partnerships, kind of like what we got going here, and to hear how other people have gotten their businesses started, to hear this story specifically, and to hear it from 2 different points of view is really, really interesting. So I'm super excited that our listeners are going to get to hear more about Tom, who, like you said, you've known for a while, but also about his partnership with Shef Tiffany Derry.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think everybody's going to really enjoy hearing. There's a lot of modesty in this episode, but don't be fooled. Tom is really out there doing work. The work they're doing with the restaurants, on the social justice front is just really. Really cool stuff, and we're really grateful for the opportunity to highlight them. So without further ado, let's jump in, Shawn. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back with our interview with Tom Foley. This is Deconstructing Dallas. Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. Stick with us. Welcome back, Deconstructing Dallas. Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. Shawn, earlier today we spoke with Tiffany Derry, of course, of T2D Partners. Now we get the second half of the equation in T2D Partners. He, of course, Tom Foley, the founder of the Indigo Group, a partner at T2D Partners, an attorney, an advocate. There's nothing this man can't do, apparently. Tom Foley, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, Ryan, Shawn, thanks for having me. I will tell you that you've got the first T already in Tiffany. So, with the second T, it's not quite as exciting, but I appreciate you inviting me.
Hey, we had to get the other bookend here. So, Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself. You and I have known each other for several years and crossed paths in various locations across town. But tell us about your past, your upbringing, and where you are now.
Absolutely. I'll do an abbreviated version. I'm a New Yorker by background, born and raised in Long Island. Went to college upstate New York at Colgate University. Went to law school at Villanova. But I think what's important is between college and law school, I taught high school for a year in a under-resourced area in Queens, New York. And I was 21, teaching high school students, some of whom were 2 years younger than me. And I learned a heck of a lot, opened my eyes to experiences that were much different from mine. And now looking back, it was probably the most influential professional year I had. Didn't realize it at the time. So practice law in New York City. Isn't that what you do, right? You grow up in Long Island and you go to law school. Where else are you going to practice? Started with litigation. Didn't like the fact that we're fighting every day, or at least I was fighting every day. So went to the transactional side. Realized that I was still fighting, right? 97% of the transaction went smoothly, but the 3% that didn't, I was dealing with, right? The smooth aspects, there was no need to get me involved necessarily. So ultimately transitioned to the business side, worked with a company in New York that ultimately had to shut down because of bankruptcy. They had some accounting issues, ultimately touching on some accounting fraud. And for me, that was a pivotal point in saying, how can I leverage my skill set, if I have any? You said I could do everything, but maybe I can't do anything, right? How can I leverage my skill set and try and drive greater equity within our communities? And a lot of that was informed by my experiences between college and law school. And again, I didn't realize it at the time, but that's what kind of came full circle and said, okay, how do I leverage that skill set to try and equitize, if I can use that word, our society a little bit?
Well, it sounds like that is something that's important to you, Tom. Your firm, Indigo Group, launches and operates social impact businesses that focus on social justice. So can you talk about the mission and vision of Indigo Group?
Yeah, and as Ryan said, we've run across each other a few different occasions. We ran across each other when I was working in partnership with the city of Irving, focused on assisting women and minority-owned businesses launch and scale. And for me, when you talk about trying to create equitable opportunities, two key words are education and access. How can you provide education and access that, particularly for smaller businesses that don't have that network of resources? How do you build that? At the same point in time, Shawn, you hit a key point: social entrepreneurship. I love missions of not-for-profits and the balance of the for-profit corporate structure. But for me personally, kind of in the lane of social impact is key, meaning how can we address a social issue as the core focus of your business while driving profit? And that's how we define the social impact component, the social justice. So again, it showed itself working with Ryan in the space of helping those small businesses. It then advanced, and it's a journey. I'm sure you all appreciate, and you've spoken to a lot of folks. I'm sure it's a journey that everybody will talk about. As we started to work with small businesses, one of the data points, women of color is the fastest growing segment of small businesses. And we tend to celebrate up arrows. Up arrows aren't always something to be celebrated. And when we looked at the qualitative data, you found that many women of color that were opening their businesses were doing it because of necessity, not opportunity. So as the attorney, issue, rule, apply, conclude, is the issue the fact that smaller businesses don't have the resources they need? Or is the issue that the corporate community isn't providing the opportunities for these now entrepreneurs? So that kind of led to becoming an advocate within the corporate space, hosting workshops and conversations around inclusion. Work with Next Up, which is formerly the Network of Executive Women nationally, on their allyship program. So built and stood up the curriculum there, where we work with cohorts consistently around building allyship within the workplace. I teach at Paul Quinn College. So I told you between college and law school, I taught, which was an amazing experience. So I can't get myself out of the classroom. And if you haven't had the opportunity to be in a classroom, my key component is you should be teaching the students a whole lot, and they should be teaching you more. And when that becomes lopsided, then it's time for you to exit the classroom. So for me, being in the classroom is also an opportunity to stay connected to and learn from the students and their experiences.
I get the pleasure of hanging out with this guy, Shawn Williams, and he's done some great work. He and one of our co-owners, Jennifer Pascal, of course, have done a series of, webinars and a lot of other work. And I get to look at his smiling face when we walk in the door. He's got a great poster from his magazine cover. So it's great to be with a practitioner. I know it's obviously something that you're passionate about, but you're a New York guy. Why is this so important here in Dallas County, and the greater North Texas region?
It's important, as you know, Ryan and Shawn. It's important all over. and the inequities exist in many areas, too many areas, quite frankly. When we moved to Dallas, one of the aspects that was striking to me was when we were talking with residents of the area and we're talking about schools. And when we moved, my daughter was going into first grade and my son was going into fifth grade. And it was clear that there seemed to be significant dissuasion of enrolling in a DISD. And it seemed like a blanket comment that Dallas independent school districts may not provide the best educational opportunity, and you may want to explore. And then the recommendation would be filling in the blank as to what they thought the solution was. And for me, it was just striking that you have one of the more sizable school districts in the country, and there's clear inequity. Certainly don't know, and at the time, don't know the true history of Dallas, don't know the depth of some of those issues. But certainly I didn't like what I was hearing. So how do you change that? And that was, again, some of the steps of where can I lend, and I don't want to be presumptuous and say I have talents, but if I have any talents, where can I lend those talents? Paul Quinn College being one, teach at Dallas College, which has a different community, a different student demographic than some other schools in the area. And for me, I felt there was a need to drive that conversation. But again, Ryan, it's not unique to Dallas by any means. I also thought it was important that the conversation, when we talk about equity, include the white dominant culture voice, and do it in a way that is advocating and learning at the same point in time, and sharing so that we can work cooperatively to try and solve solutions that certainly have a racial component to it and deeper than that.
Tom, I really appreciate what you're saying. And, as Ryan and I lobby compliments back and forth, which is pretty much what our whole show is, we had a really good series called Where Do We Go From Here? And it was a conversation about race. And it's like, there's no conversation for me to have if there's not somebody on the other end like Ryan to have that conversation with. And so one of the questions I'm thinking about based on listening to what you're talking about is, when you are talking and seeing other attorneys, when you're even as a professor, when you're talking to your friends, you talked about kind of how it's important to have some of the white voices involved in these conversations. So what's some of the feedback you hear? What do people say when you talk to them about these concepts?
So I've got two answers to that question. One, I think is I'll say telling. I also think it's interesting from an analysis perspective. Some of the feedback or some of the questions, or probably the primary question I get, is why? Why do you do this? And over the course of years, I'm not so sure I've come up with a satisfactory answer for the listener. And as the one that's providing the answer, sometimes, you go through the stages of emotions, frustration, anger, like, why do you need to know? And I went to law school. No one ever asked me why I went to law school, right? They didn't say, oh, you majored in economics in college? Why'd you major in economics in college? They presumed I was interested in economics, right? And that made sense to them. I go to law school. Okay, you did pretty well at college. You go to law school. You want to be a lawyer. No one ever asked me why, because it made sense to them. Then when I did something that seemingly doesn't make sense, there has to be a why behind it.
Wow, right.
And that was key. And then, the second component is the reaction. And Shawn, what comes to mind is I was part of the Aspen Institute fellowship that was in Dallas. Mm-hmm. We had a conversation on race. And for me, the question came up, when was the first time you seriously had to deal with race? And it was when I was in my young 20s and I was marrying into an East Indian family. and they didn't like the white guy coming into the brown family. And a few points of resonance. One, how lucky am I that I live on this earth 20 plus years and race is not anything that I have to handle, challenge, deal with, respond to, or be impacted by. The reverse is not about me. It's about the other people that are in the conversations. Where I had a gentleman who was a Black gentleman who came up to me and he said, I really appreciate that perspective. I didn't allow myself to understand your view that I've known I was Black from the time I could know I was Black, and I've had to deal with it every day of my life. And what you've given me an appreciation for is recognizing that when I'm talking with you in a conversation, 20 years of your life, you didn't think what I thought about every day. You didn't experience what I thought about every day. And by no means was he saying I'm 20 years behind him in the thought process. It was more, hey, now I get what lenses you may be wearing when you say or respond or share certain information compared to my experiences. So, those are completely different answers, I understand, Shawn, but hopefully they kind of blend and make a little bit of sense.
Absolutely.
An answer for everybody. I like it. We're talking to Tom Foley on Deconstructing Dallas. This is Ryan Trimble and Shawn Williams. We're going to take a quick break. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, Deconstructing Dallas. Shawn Williams, Ryan Trimble. We are speaking with Tom Foley, founder of the Indigo Group. He is a partner with T2D and an attorney and advocate. And, we've had a chance to talk to Tiffany, Shef Tiffany, and we know that you guys are doing gangbusters with Roots Southern Table, but also you have a newer concept with the Roots Chicken Shak. And, there's a true opportunity. I know that there's a social kind of model there as well. And so I wanted to see if you could talk about the kind of change that you're looking to make with that brand.
Thank you for that question, Shawn. As we talked about at the beginning of Deconstructing Dallas, that we see that there's not equal access education, not equal access to opportunities. And for us, Tiffany and myself, how can we try to shift that system? How do we try and shift that experience? So we have Roots Chicken Shak. It doesn't seem like that question and that answer match, right? Oh, hold up a second. You're going to shift the system and you're talking about fried chicken sandwiches and chicken tenders. Listen, I'm there for lunch, but I ain't seen you shifting any systems. But the idea is, how can we create a concept that economically matches any other fast casual concept? And we think we've started to build a framework that does that, from all of the costs and build out costs and square footage. As a matter of fact, we've got a pretty lean footprint. We can open a space with a 350 square foot kitchen and do volume that restaurants at larger kitchen volumes can handle. We do have 2 locations, one up in Legacy Hall in Plano and one down in Austin in the Mueller district within an HEB. But what we've done recently is we just announced a project in the city of DeSoto. And what we've done is basically said, can you answer these 3 questions? Yes. Question 1, do you have restaurant experience? Question 2, do you have $25,000 or less in the bank? Question 3, do you have a 650 credit score or lower? Then we want you to operate into ownership of our Roots Chicken Shak in DeSoto. The idea being, through partnerships with the municipality, community development financial institutions, working with community banks, can we create a model that allows that person, ideally, say a woman from the community of DeSoto, historically red line district, for her to come in and say, you know, I have $7,000 in the bank. I've been an assistant manager at this quick service restaurant. I really know what I'm doing inside and out. My credit score has been impacted because either there was a medical condition or I'm paying my bills, but I've got 2 children at home and I'm carrying some debt. I'd really love to own my own restaurant, right? I think right now the answer is, well, stick at it. We'll see what we can do. For Roots Chicken Shak, because of the partnership with the municipality, because of the partnership with the banks, we can create a vesting schedule for you to own it. So this isn't, again, we talked about social entrepreneurship. This isn't a charity. We're not giving any restaurant to anyone. We're saying you need to pay for it. The way the system has been skewed, you don't have the traditional way to pay. But you do have a skill set, you do have time. So we're going to go through that sweat equity payment and you'll gain ownership in the restaurant. For us, that's what we are excited about. And we do think we're in position, hopefully within, the foreseeable future to scale. And we want to create what we call a 10-to-1 model. If you're really going to grow a franchise, you do need the traditional form of investment. You do need investors coming in that can open 10 units in Atlanta, for instance. But we want to make sure that for every 10 units that we create this ownership opportunity from a historically red lines district and a community member from that district that becomes the owner. So for us, that's what, Tiffany's amazing in the kitchen and she can spin up some ingredients that are crazy good. And y'all have to come to Root Southern Table for dinner. For us, we're trying to spin up some, pardon the pun, some ingredients that are in the business world that create unique opportunities and bring flavors out that we haven't seen before.
I love it. I love it, Tom. Now, here's the trick question. When we were talking to Tiffany, we said, what should we ask Tom? And she said, ask him to tell you about what sealed the deal on our partnership. So, I pose this to you.
Yeah, we had just done an interview recently, and I'm sure you talk to entrepreneurs and let's say, what's one of the key either mistakes or recommendations you have as an entrepreneur? And it's treating your partnership like you would a marriage. So Tiffany had reached out to me, and you had the opportunity to speak with Tiffany. Unfortunately, I should be the first one that you do the podcast with because I am a distant second in the engagement. So when you talk to Tiffany, right, there's something about her spirit, right? You feel it. So as we're talking, she wanted to meet with me talking about the structure of investment deals for restaurants, you kind of leaning on my legal background. And we couldn't figure out the right time to meet. So I said, well, just come to my house because that's when it worked. I've never done that with a client before, right? I don't suggest that they come to my house, but there was something in the phone call. So then we meet and we wound up talking for, 2 or 3 hours. Again, not what attorneys do, and I didn't bill for it, right? I wasn't trying to get all the hours in. It was just, there was a connection. So we started talking and said, hey, did you ever have any interest in the hospitality space? Would you ever have any interest? So yeah, we had that shared component. So we're meeting one day, and since this is Deconstructing Dallas, we met, along Tollway and Alpha. There's a coffee location there. And my wife doesn't work far from there. And she said, invite your wife down. I'd love to meet her. So sure, we grabbed some coffee and to reveal the punchline a little quickly. If you like me even a little bit, I know if you meet my business partner or my personal partner, you'll like me a little more, right? So the second Tiffany says, you want to meet your wife? I'm like, yes. Like she makes me look even better if I look good to begin with, right? So she makes me look good. So she came down, they hit it off. And at the end of that, my wife heads back to work and Tiffany goes, so you want to be partners? And I was like, I do, but it was, why kind of the sudden question? And she said, I wanted to hear from your wife about how she views you, who you are as a person, not what you present from a business perspective. And those are going to be like who you truly are. And that's where we clicked. So the key was, the Rupa is my wife's name. Rupa and Tiffany had to connect, and then I was invited to be part of the next step of T2D Concepts.
Much like Shawn and I.
I was about to say, you got two guys on the line here who wholeheartedly understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, for anybody who wants to connect, wants to find out more, how are ways that our listeners can engage?
Yeah. So, we T2Dconcepts.com is kind of our main website that leads to our brands. We've got a spice that hopefully will be on the shelves of a supermarket that you'll recognize. Hopefully in about 3 months, we're looking to build out Chicken Shak and Southern Table. So those websites will lead you there. I'm not unbelievably social media active, though I've got to improve that. So I think at TX Foley for Instagram and Twitter. Tiffany is obviously leading our charge with that. So certainly follow Tiffany at Master Shef TD. But of course, LinkedIn under Indigo Group and Thomas Foley. But I appreciate you inviting me and allowing me to share a little bit about what we're working on.
Well, we certainly enjoyed having you, Tom. Thanks so much for coming on. This
Absolutely.
is Deconstructing Dallas. Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, Deconstructing Dallas. Shawn Williams, Ryan Trimble. Ryan, I'm really glad that after a little bit of time off that we had these two interviews to come back to, because I think it really highlights two people that are really doing a lot in Dallas. They've got some innovation as it relates to franchising, innovation as it relates to their restaurants, but really making a difference from a social justice and an impact standpoint.
Yeah, thank you to both Tiffany and Tom. Great stuff. We look forward to catching up soon and to dining with you soon. So thank you again for the time.
And thanks to Jennifer Pascal and Mary Woodley, both of our owners who helped us pull this one together. And, it's taken us a while to get it going, but it really has paid off. So definitely want to give them a shout out as well.
That's right. And Shawn, I'm going to tease a little bit of should I call it our fall season? I think our spring season was a bit short this year, but
I like teasing the fall because it just sounds like cooler weather.
It does. We're going to go from hot weather and hot restaurants to some really cool guests this fall doing some important work at City Hall and across Dallas, beyond the walls of 1500 Marilla. So we look forward to joining you all again.
Well, Ryan, let's not make it as long between episodes this time.
Amen.
I've heard from our tens and tens of listeners, and they have told me they want more.
They are hungry, Shawn.
We have got to do that. But also, we got a little work to do around here, so we are going to make sure that we get both of those things accomplished.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, for Ryan Trimble, this is Shawn Williams. We want to thank everyone that has helped us pull this episode together. Again, thanks to Mary Woodley, Jennifer Pascal. Thanks to Deborah Meek, who has helped get us back on track and get us rolling. Again, we haven't asked this in a while, but for all of our listeners, please share this with folks who you think would benefit from hearing it. Leave us a 5 stars and a wonderful review. Make sure that you can be heard here at Deconstructing Dallas, and that is the way. Follow us on Twitter. He's R Trimble, RTRIMBLE 15. I am Shawn P. Williams, SHAWNP Williams. We have got, as Ryan said, something really cool coming up next. So make sure you tune in, hang with us. Deconstructing Dallas, Shawn Williams, Ryan Trimble. Adios.